Before I get into what we want to share this morning, I just want to read Psalm 116. There's some quite poignant words here from the Word of God, and I just want to share these few verses with you. So Psalm 116. I love the Lord, for he heard my voice. He heard my cry for mercy. Because he turned his ear to me, I will call on him as long as I live. The cords of death entangled me. The anguish of the grave came over me. I was overcome by distress and sorrow. Then I called on the name of the Lord. Lord, save me. The Lord is gracious and righteous. Our God is full of compassion. The Lord protects the unwary. When I was brought low, he saved me. Return to your rest, my soul, for the Lord has been good to you. For you, Lord, have delivered me from death, my eyes from tears, my feet from stumbling, that I may walk before the Lord in the land of the living. I trusted in the Lord when I said, I am greatly afflicted. In my alarm, I said, everyone is a liar. What shall I return to the Lord for all his goodness to me? I will lift up the cup of salvation and call on the name of the Lord. I will fulfill my vows to the Lord in the presence of all his people. Precious in the sight of the Lord is the death of his faithful servants. Truly, I am your servant, Lord. I serve you just as my mother did. You have freed me from chains. I will sacrifice a thank offering to you and call on the name of the Lord. I will fulfill my vows to the Lord in the presence of all his people. In the courts of the house of the Lord, in your midst, Jerusalem, praise the Lord. Amen. Well, this morning I want to share with you a little of what we've been up to in the summer. Many people have asked me, how did you get on when you were in Africa? What happened? You know, did you have a good time and all that? And if I'm honest, it was mixed. It was interesting. I was talking to Anna, and Anna said to me, are you going to ask me what my highs and lows were? And I said, were there lows? She said, well, there were some. But we thought we'd share this morning a little of what we saw and experienced in Africa. And I'm going to share mostly, but Anna's going to chip in as well. And hopefully it will encourage you. And I don't think it's necessarily out of step with the mood of today in terms of thinking about the life and death of our Queen Elizabeth, as I'm sure you will see as we go on. So we arrived in Africa, I can't even remember when it was, a few weeks ago now. Later than we planned. Our flight was delayed by 8 days. That's some flight delay, isn't it? Thankfully, we had the sense to come home and not stay at the airport. But on the screen, our first Sunday, we were with a church right on the edge of Lake Victoria. And a wonderful experience. A small congregation, maybe 50, 60 people there. And what was really interesting was the pastor there. I can't remember his name, Anna. Can you remember his name? No, it's gone, isn't it? But the pastor there, he is a fisherman. That's how he makes his living. And you know, like we've got the cars parked in the car park here by the side of the church. It was fishing boats parked by the side of the church. There was about half a dozen boats there, weren't there, parked? Anna didn't fancy getting in them for a ride. She's not one, she doesn't like the water very much. But we had a really interesting time with this church. I actually preached in this church on 2 Sundays. The first Sunday we were there, and the second Sunday we were there. Unbeknown to me, the first Sunday I preached on the verse the church was founded on. On the second Sunday I preached on their verse for the year. I had no idea at all. And so the people there were really, really encouraged that God was speaking to them. I was encouraged that I actually, because I didn't know necessarily that these verses were so significant to them. Had some very interesting experiences. It's really interesting. I don't know about you, but I really enjoyed David Cracknell's preach last week on money. Did you? It was great. It was great to hear a different voice, and I thought the insight that he brought was really helpful. And it was very interesting when we were in Africa. Obviously, most people, not everyone, but most people live in a level of poverty that is beyond what we can imagine. And at one point they had a collection for, I think it was for a new speaker or something like that, and for a sound system or whatever, and people had pledged money. And I saw a woman come forward, and she pledged to give 20,000 shillings, and she was giving the last 5 shillings. And they've got this, it's really interesting. When you're trying to understand different cultures and things like this, I mean, as you're probably well aware, I enjoy using a little bit of humour to communicate a point. And so I used a story that I thought was humorous, and I think I've used it here, about the time when I was at school, and instead of leaving the classroom, I shut myself in the cupboard, and nobody laughed. But when they had the offering, people came up publicly, and if someone brought up like the equivalent of a penny or 2p, everyone laughed and thought it was hilarious. And I thought, that's really rude. Yeah, I almost felt like they were mocking these small amounts that people were giving. But at one point, this lady came forward and gave 5,000 shillings, which is about £1.20, something like that. But I really felt in my heart that this woman on that Sunday had given all that she had. And it touched my heart. And I saw her walk out of the service and go down the road. And I said to Anna, quick, give me your purse. I took some money out and I chased her down the road and I put some money in her hand. Now, I don't want to brag about my giving, but I just felt it. I had to do it in the Lord. And I said, this is for your family, to look after your family, for food. And I just put the money in her hand, and it was more than she'd given, which was not a big stretch when she's given all she had, which was about £1. But I just felt that sometimes we need to remember that in our giving, sometimes people do give all that they have. God sees it. God sees everything that we do, every aspect of our life. And I was really challenged by the generosity of people who have very, very little. After that Sunday, we had the adventure and great privilege to go and visit Jenny's daughter, Jedidah, in Kenya. And you would think with all the advances in technology and science and politics and economics and everything else, it would be a really straightforward journey. It wasn't. We had a chap driving us. We got to the border We found out he owed money on his car, so he wasn't allowed to take his car out of the country. So we were stranded at the border. And so our driver is resourceful, like most Africans are. Africans are extremely resourceful. They face problems every day and they find solutions every day. So they said, don't worry, we'll get you a taxi. So we'd been waiting around at the border for at least 2 hours, hadn't we? And you know what it's like, you get a bit restless. There's nothing there. There's like a little shop that sells Cokes and samosas, and that's it. Do you know what I mean? We were thankful for that. Anyway, he said, I've got you a taxi. And they'd been negotiating with him, trying to get it down, and they agreed a price. And actually, I paid the price that the man had suggested in the first place, because I was just so relieved we were getting there. Then we saw the car. And Anna said to me, I'm not getting in that. And I said, Anna, you are getting in it, and you're going to pray. It had bolt tyres. The doors, when they shut, didn't open again. If any of you remember that TV show, The Dukes of Hazzard, where they get in and out through the windows, it was a little bit like that. I sat in the front next to the guy driving. None of the dials worked. You didn't know if it was overheating. You didn't know how fast it was going. You didn't know how much fuel he had. No dials worked. It was pouring with rain. The window was misting up. I don't think his demister worked. Anna said, do you need something? She was passing. What was it you passing? Tissues from the back. And we're wiping the inside of the windscreen, and it's getting dark. And it got to the point, Anna thought the driver was nodding off as well. So she was getting really worried. So she said, Alan, just keep the conversation going. And at one point, most people in Africa are at least nominally Christian, if not born again. So everyone has a knowledge group. So in order to keep the conversation going, Anna said to him, who's your favourite prophet in the Bible? And I'm looking round at her going, what? But it was getting desperate. But he was a one-word answer man. Do you know what I mean? One of those men. And so it was very difficult. And I was going to say, well, who's your favourite prophet then, Anna? But it was desperate times. We were so thankful when we got to Kitale, and that we'd arranged a pickup point, and there was Jedidah. And we were so pleased to see her. Having never met her before in my life, I can tell you I was never more pleased to see someone that I kind of knew, even though I'd never met her. And so we went to Kitale, and Jedidah took us to where we were staying, like a guest house. And the lady who runs it is English with a Kenyan husband. And so we had a proper English dinner that night. And it was just like being in the UK, because it was cold, it was pouring with rain, and I think we've got a picture of Una by the fire. I sent this picture to Jenny. She said, why have you got a fire? Is it that cold? I said, Jenny, it's freezing. It was pouring with rain. It never got above 16 degrees, and this was our introduction to Kenya, not at all how we imagined it. There's a picture of Jedidah and Una. There they are, outside of their home. So that's part of the Mercy Rescue Centre, and where you can see at the top, that's where Jedidah's kind of flat apartment is. And she'd like to actually there create her own little private garden, if she could one day. That would be really nice. But we had a phenomenal time, and there's some. You put the photos up, Pauline, just there. What was this child's name? I can't remember. Jaden, that's right. Jaden's got cerebral palsy, really bad cerebral palsy. I learned something that I didn't know while we were in Uganda. Obviously, we're all aware of the disease called malaria, and obviously many people die from malaria, and usually the people who are most badly affected by malaria are young children. But what I didn't realise on my travels was this, that those that survive malaria often end up disabled because they get cerebral palsy as a result of having malaria and not being receiving medical treatment in time. And so in Kenya and in Uganda as well, there are millions of children with disabilities because of malaria. It was absolutely eye-opening to me. I didn't realise that was an issue that it was. It wasn't just a killer, but even those that survived, often they end up severely, well, to a whole different spectrum of disabilities. So that's Jane. This is a premature baby. Again, I'm rubbish with names. Anna, can you remember the name? Elijah. Well done. And Anna's one of these people knows names. Here's a name once, remembers it. Premature baby. Mercy Rescue is an amazing ministry, and I'm not going to say too much because Judida will be with us in just a few weeks. But they basically, either through their contacts or through the authorities, receive children or babies that are unwanted or abandoned. And you think, goodness me, does that really happen? But it does. A lot of these children have come about through rape, incest, or extreme poverty and have just been abandoned. And little Elijah, he's a very, very premature baby. I know as we picked him up, you could feel the weight of the blanket and you're thinking, is there anything inside? You know, it was hard to imagine. So tiny. And what they do is they, initially they ran a centre and they were looked after in the centre, but actually COVID brought a change that actually was probably a good change to what they did, in that their children now that they receive, they come to the centre first of all, but then they have a network of carers, foster carers, who look after these children in their own homes, and then they either try to find if their family or adoptive parents for these children. And so many of these children find a home where they will live for all their childhood. Sadly, if they've got a disability like Jaden, they won't live to adulthood, which is heartbreaking. And I'll say more on that in a moment. So what was really exciting was, one, for us to meet Judida. Two, I was so impressed by what they're doing there and the impact that they're having. And we met many children, and I could have put up like 100 slides today, but we went to people's homes where they had children in their own homes looking after them, and we were very impressed. So we'll hear more from Judida in due course, but we just want you to know as a church, we really want to strengthen our links as Kingsway Chapel with Judida, and so we'll be hearing from her, and we want to really support her, not only financially, but spiritually, and encourage her. And do you know what? The one thing Judida wants more than anything is contact from us at Kingsway. So I think that's something that we're going to work on and facilitate so that many of us can get to know her and help support what they do. We also visited another project, which is we raised money for last year. Here on the camera there, on the photo there, that's Moses from Ascend Youth Development Trust, sat at his desk in his office. And if you scan through the pictures there, we arrived and they were just about to have their lunch. Rice and beans. And there's many children there, as you can see. They feed many children and they educate children. And the passion that Moses has is reaching young people through football. And so I can't remember, did he say what team he supported? It was probably one I didn't like. Yeah. But we had an amazing time with Moses. It was really impressive to see what they did on quite a small compound on the outskirts of Kampala. His main focus is reaching children who are street kids, who've left home, run away from home, or often because there's been domestic abuse in the home or whatever. But there's also a lot of local children as well come along and take part in what they do. And as you can see there, there's a huge crowd of children. Actually, is that me in the background, right in the background? Yeah, I can see a white face in the background. It's probably better on that screen, isn't it? There he is. There's me in the background. We were very, very impressed at the level of outreach going on to reach these children in often, many times, extreme poverty. The other aspect of what we did is because one of the main reasons we went out is because Anna's been to Uganda twice before. And this is where I realised that my joke is that Anna knows everybody in Cheshire, okay? Everywhere I go, she knows people. I'll go to Manchester, people say, oh, hello, Anna. Go to Chester, people say, hello, Anna. Go to Liverpool, we say hello, Anna. And if we're in East Cheshire, it's even worse. It's like every other person. She says, oh, I know them. We went to a wedding yesterday. She knew the caterers. She knew different people. They're an old farming family. But then when we got to Uganda, so I have a joke. I call her the Queen of Cheshire. Okay, it's my little joke. But then when we got to Uganda, it was like the being on tour with the Queen, because one of the things that we did, and if the next slide can come up, Pauline, was that Anna declared opened a school gate and school fence that she'd raised money for. And I really genuinely did. I think I even put up a post on social media said, I feel like I'm the Duke of Edinburgh with the Queen, because it was like, it was this amazing time. I mean, what was your recollection of that, Anna? You've got a microphone there. Can you say something about that?
The recollection of that actual occasion?
Oh, and the general.
Do you want me to come up there?
Yeah, go on.
Oh, gosh. You're probably thinking this is a really strange thing to do on your honeymoon. And we both have a love for Uganda, and both had separate experiences in Uganda. But I'd been twice before, and I don't know, it completely stirs me up. If ever you have the slightest inkling that you want to go to a third world country and just life-changing experience, you must go. Every time I've been, I come back a different person, and the people are just so lovely, so joyful, so free, and as much as they have so little materialistically, there's just a freedom that we don't see in this country. And so it's just an amazing experience. We laughed a lot. It wasn't all kind of, a lot of hard work. We had lots of fun. So this is a school that I've been linked with for about 3 years. I've never seen a school so poor in all my life, and of course I work in education. This school, when I first went there, basically was just 2 brick buildings, no flooring, no carpets, no kind of wall particularly with any space to put pictures or anything on. Just a very, very barren school. But what was the colour of the school was the children, and they were so gorgeous and they so want to learn. And in Uganda, education isn't free, they have to pay. So there'd be 80 children in a class, and 5 on each bench. No shoes to be seen anywhere, but the joy of wanting to learn. And this school, I have got to know the headmistress, and she said that 'cause it's a great big campus, but they had a lot of problems with robberies and wild animals coming in, and it needed to be secure. So I went away and started doing fundraising. And this school is called Belogo School, and it's a primary school, but you probably can see children that look a lot older. And basically in Uganda, they may miss time in school, and they go the next year and the next year. And you've got primary children here, kind of age 14, you know, because they've missed school and they've started later in life. So the second time I went, because I worked at a big high school over in Northwich, I took 1,000 pencils with me, all with the school name on, and I handed out all these pencils. But I promised them that I would raise enough money for this fence. And then, of course, COVID came, and but I carried on fundraising, and I sent the money, and I never heard any more. And I thought, oh, I bet they've spent it on something else. I bet it's never got there. And so this day, when we arrived at the school, there was the fence, there was the gate. I know it was so emotional, because I thought, gosh, they have actually done it. Because it was the fact that they're now secure, that they're safe, that they've, you know, got their kind of whole border of a school base. And because of me doing this fence, they've actually managed to get some funding from a charity out there to get a new classroom built. And it was just a tremendous occasion. I arrived just to kind of come and say hello, and they'd been waiting like 2 years to see me. And I had to cut the ribbon, and we officially opened the gate. They did dancing and singing for me. And it was just tremendous. We planted some mahogany trees,
Yes,
Dave.
put that up. This is for you, Dave.
And
there we are. There I am, look. Thinking of you. Planting mahogany trees, yes.
These were real royal moments, you know. And but I said to one of the guys in charge, what happens when the fence gets all, you know, worn down and tired and weathered? And he said, oh, we're going to plant a hedge of trees all the way around the perimeter, so that when the fence is worn out, it'll be trees. So it was just incredible. I felt very emotional. And then Alan prayed for the school as well. It's just tremendous. I mean, you know, there's so much to do, and you kind of think, we've done this and we've done that, but there's so much more to do. Am I waffling on here?
No, it's all right. While you're up here, just one more thing. One of the other things we did is we took an extreme amount of luggage with us. I've never carried so much luggage in all my life. And it's not because Anna's got 200 outfits. It's because we took lots and lots of clothes. Do you want to say something about distributing clothes and different communities we went to?
Yeah, again, 2 years ago,
There's
some
another picture,
local mums to where I lived. I suppose I put out a bit of a call for help, and a lot of local young mums that I knew, they gave me children's clothes that they didn't want. And we ended up with so many children's clothes. There was like 3 cases of children's clothes. It was tremendous. But to be able to go out into communities that have nothing and give them a pile of clothes, it's like all their Christmases have arrived. You know, you see children in little scraggy T-shirts that are so oversized. You know, it's like one of the dad's old T-shirts, or just clothes that are never washed. They look very dirty and grubby. Beautiful little smiles, but, you know, obviously don't have any clothes. So we're handing out this community here, you know, that this is how they live, in corrugated iron.
Yeah, that was next to the railway line, wasn't
Yeah.
it? So they could lose their homes at any point.
Dirty accommodation, again, no shoes, just on soil. Safe and warm with their mummies, but just to give them clothes, you know, it was such an easy thing, really, apart from having to carry all the luggage. It was very easy to collect clothes, and I hope to do that again. It was lovely, particularly with Stay and Play. A mum at Stay and Play had given me some clothes, and I particularly gave them to the Mercy Rescue Trust because I wanted the link with Jenny and this mum, you know, it's just a delight to give, because they are so appreciative. You know, to us, you know, we have charity shops full of clothes, and over there, you know, they just have so little. It was really, really humbling.
Yeah. Stay there. If you put up the next slide, Pauline, while we were delayed, one on, two on actually, next one. Oh, there's another one where Anna's sat, that's the one, yeah. Right, when our flight was delayed, we were a little bit naughty. Instead of coming to Kingsway on Sunday, we thought it's an opportunity for us to skive off and go to a different church. I don't know if you ever do that sometimes. You think, do you know what, I'm going to go and visit a different church. And we thought it's an opportunity. So we actually went to the King's Church in Frodsham, because we both knew the minister because he conducted the marriage service for Anna's son. And so this lady here, her name's Pauline, she's a retired doctor. Do you want to just say, we met her, she was serving teas and coffees at King's Church Frodsham on the Sunday we missed. Tell us about Pauline.
Yeah, Pauline Hutchinson, MBE, in 2004. She's a retired doctor, but in 2004 she built a centre over in
Uganda, Masaka,
that's right. And she had been particularly moved about the disabled children that were in Uganda, and the stigma that was attached with disabled children. And as a doctor, she knew she could do great things, and knowing medical professionals in the UK, a husband, a surgeon, and she, a wonderful Christian woman, and she felt very, very called to go over there, and they got a plot of land, and it's been an amazing testimony of her life, really. She has a clinic. She has physiotherapists go, because as Alan said, there's many children with cerebral palsy, and physios there, you know, manipulating and helping and healing. So she's built this, I mean, you know, as I say, I've been to Uganda before. I've never seen such a clean, professionally run centre in Uganda. And she's been able to have work placements for doctors and nurses from the UK. But it was just such a joy, and she continues to run it from the UK a lot. She only visits once a year. But yeah, that we went to, she has a home as well, where the children, they're actually living there. Somebody manages the centre. It's called the Wellspring, but the whole thing is called Medicare, isn't it?
That's right, yeah. So if we just put up the next slide, the one after that, this young fella, his name's Musa, and as you can see, he's only got one arm, and really kind of encapsulates for me how powerful the gospel is, and what people are doing in this part of this world. This young lad, about 9 years old, was found on a rubbish heap as a baby and was taken in by a family. And then as he got older, they discovered that he wasn't well. And because he wasn't a family member, they thought, he's going to die. We don't want to bury him on our land. And so they abandoned him. How sad, eh? So this young man, he had some kind of cancer and unfortunately had to have one of his arms amputated. And bless them, the Medicare managed to get him. The one thing he wanted to do, more than anything else, he wanted to be able to use a computer. And so someone managed to get him a second-hand iPad, and they put some games on it, and one-handed he mastered using it. Now, he was a lovely, bright, cheerful young lad. But you know what? Just after we returned home, sadly, he passed away. And I just was so impacted by how fragile life is. We only get one life, all of us. Some of us get a really, really long life, like the Queen. Some of us get a short, hard, difficult life, like Musa. But you know, Musa put his trust in Jesus, and he will be standing in the same assembly as Her Majesty the Queen, being received by the same Saviour. And it just struck me that life and death is very contrasting, but at the end of the day, death is the great leveller, isn't it? We all one day will pass from this life, and we can't take our status with us, we can't take our riches with us, we can't take our reputation with us. All we have is our faith in a Saviour that saves. And for me, meeting this young man was one of the highlights. And then when I learned on our return that he'd passed away, I just thought, I want to remember this young man because it made such a mark on me. And there are thousands, if not millions, of young boys and young girls in very similar situations. But you know what? We can't save everyone, we can't help everyone, but we can help some. And you know, I think the fact that we want to help Mercy Rescue and others as well is an important part of what we do as Christians and what we do as a church. So, you can put the one up of me preaching, really, if you want. Someone took a professional photo of me preaching, well, several actually. Had the opportunity, as I said, I preached once the first Sunday, twice the second, third, 3 times the third, thinking better come home, otherwise they'll work me to death. But we had a really incredible time with different churches there, and it was really encouraging for us and for them. I think there's another slide there of Anna with someone, she's praying with this young lady in Kampala. That was somebody else's meeting, isn't it, that we gate crashed, but Anna really felt she wanted to pray with this young lady who's a relatively new Christian, I believe, has only been a Christian for about a year. And so that was really encouraging, but I don't really want to talk about us as such. I'm just going to finish up with this because I know time's going up, but we did actually do a little bit of a holiday as well. So we've got a picture of us crossing the equator. There we are. Actually at the equator, we got there about 6 in the evening, just before the sun was going down. I was really worried we wouldn't get there before it got dark, but we did. And I know if you cross the equator at sea and you're in the Merchant Navy or the Royal Navy, they do a whole ceremony. They shave your head and all sorts. I did mine, but Anna wasn't going to play that one. I just wanted to get that photo opportunity at the equator because Anna had been twice before, never been to the equator. And then we did finally just do a couple of days holiday. So there we are. There's a lion in the road. Didn't move, did he? You had to drive round him. He just say there. And the mother, you couldn't get a good picture, but the mother was up in the tree. They got this, and this was in Queen Elizabeth National Park. And the mother was up in a tree. I couldn't really get a good photo, but they're famous for their tree climbing lions in this part of Africa. And so that was amazing, wasn't it? Anna hadn't seen wildlife. And then the next one, there's Anna on a boat, and there behind you, it's behind you, is an elephant. And we saw lots and lots of elephants. And it was quite... I'd been before. Anna had been to Uganda twice, never been on safari. I said, Anna, that's not right. You've got to see the wildlife as well. And I tell you what, there's no greater thrill than driving down the road and then like 10 yards away from you is a wild elephant just stood there eating. It's quite something to experience. And so we finished on that high, really, didn't we? Which was really good. And I just want to say, before we wrap up, and I know Tristan's going to come and pray in a minute, and we'll finish the song. I do appreciate everyone who prayed, because some of you were aware, I was taken quite ill at the end, and I had sickness and diarrhea. I would say extreme sickness. I don't want to go into too much detail, but it was bad. And I thank God for Imodium when I could keep it down. When it eventually took hold, it was a big help. And but
quite
goodness
a bonding
me,
experience for a new wife.
it was, wasn't it? So we do really appreciating you praying for us, and we are really hoping next year and. Think about this and pray about this. We're thinking of really possibly taking a team out to East Africa next year. So think about it. No one's too old. And think about it.